Hello and welcome to the Doctors Who Read Stuff. My name is Chris.
I'm Chip.
And I'm Brian.
And today we are discussing the first half of The Witcher from the book.
First half of the first story,
Yeah,
right?
from the book The Witcher. So, as we kind of talked about last time, this book, The Last Wish, is a compilation of 6 short stories. And for our first set of episodes, we've read the first story entitled The Witcher. And in this story, Geralt of Rivia, who is the Witcher, the main protagonist of this book, travels to Temeria because there is advertisements of a monster being that is basically terrorizing this area. And his job is to kill monsters. So he goes to an inn. He's taken to the castellan of the city, who then takes him to the king, and we find out that the monster is actually the king's daughter that he had with his sister. And they're trying to figure out if there's a way to basically reverse the spell, or if Geralt is going to have to kill her. Is that pretty much summarizing where we're at here?
I think so.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Because I didn't prepare that at all. My brain is just that good.
Yeah.
Well done. Well done.
Thanks.
Over there.
So, before we get too far into this, I will say that after I read the story, I went back and I watched episode 3 from Netflix's Witcher series, which covers a somewhat modified version of this story. So I've got a couple different pieces of perspective here. And I thought they did a good job.
Pieces of perspective?
Yeah, absolutely.
No, I would agree.
So, let's jump right in. The first chapter of this opens up with like this weird, almost sex scene type thing.
Yeah.
Which I assume these are interspersed between the short stories to form some sort of a cohesive arc.
Yeah, they
right?
they build kind of a narrative around each story. Yeah. So there's this kind of framework around it, since it's I don't know, I think there's 5 or 6 short stories in here, and they kind of put this narrative around it, I think, just to kind of tie it together, so it reads like a longer form novel.
Yeah. Okay. That was kind of my assumption, but yeah. So that was kind of weird because you went from that chapter right into now he's going into Temeria. But maybe what we should do is we should bring up the map and kind of show what exactly we're looking at here. So Temeria.
I've never seen the map, so I'm kind of curious too.
So here's an interesting thing. Andrzej Sapkowski, did I say that right?
I think based on what we've talked about before.
Okay, cool. And it was on the first try even. So he never created a map for these stories. He never created a map of this world. And when he was asked about this later on, I'm assuming after the games and things like that came out, he said, there's no reason for me to do that because all these people have already created much better maps than I could ever make. Which I suppose he does have a point, but and this is a little bit of a tangent, I've read some interviews with him, and he just strikes me as a very strange dude. Like, he was asked about the Netflix show and what he thought about it, if he was collaborating, if they stayed true to his vision or not, and he basically non-answered every question the interviewer asked him. It was the strangest thing I'd ever read. And I also know that he sold the rights to The Witcher to the video game company. Was it I don't remember the name of it offhand, but basically for not a lot of money. The games made an enormous sum of money. So then he went after them and he was like, hey, you should pay me some royalties because you're making all this money on my stuff. Now, the video game company could have told him to go pound sand, but they actually were like, you know what? Yeah, your IP did make us a lot of money. We're not going to give you everything you asked for, but here we're going to give you this. And I think they just settled that within the last 12 months. So that was kind of interesting. Just
wow.
And those games have been
I think it
around
was
for a while.
late 90s,
10 years, maybe?
early 2000s, something like that.
Was it? Yeah, because the games showed up in the United States before the translation
Right.
of the books ever did. So I think it was until the Netflix series was being produced, I didn't even realize it was based on books. I thought it was all based on video games. Because I thought, oh god, another video game series. But then it's like, oh no, it's based on books. Books, then games, then series.
So anyway,
interesting path it took.
Before I went down this rabbit hole, I was going to say the world, like the map is huge and it's long north to south. So this is just a subsection of the map. And right in the middle, we have Temeria. And within Temeria, if we zoom in a little bit further, we are in the city of Vizima. Now, in the map, it's spelled Wyzima. And that's from the Polish word for the city. So Vizima is actually the English translation. But this is where this takes place. This is the town he comes into. This is where he goes to see the Castellan and Foltest. And the palace that comes later is actually on the other side of the town as well. So this is the primary area that we are looking at. And if you look... to the east of this town, you have a mountain range called Mahakam, and on the other side of that, a little bit to the south, you have Rivia. So Geralt of Rivia, from there, is on the other side of this mountain range. So I did a little bit of research, and so Foltest is the king of Temeria, Mahakam, and then Pontar, which is a smaller... principality to the north. And one of the things that I think I remember reading in that initial couple of pages when Geralt walks into the bar is that they don't seem to like people from Rivia.
That was made pretty clear within the first couple of pages that they didn't really welcome their kind here. They had not nice things to say, and basically picked a fight with him, which they probably shouldn't have.
Yeah, clearly. Yeah.
Well, obviously, yeah.
But interestingly enough, I was reading a little bit about Foltest, who I'm going to put up on the screen here. And this is from the Witcher video game series. And then the smaller photo is Foltest from the Netflix series. But Foltest's grandfather, who he apparently was not fond of, was Hugo of Rivia. And it says, upon his ascension to the Temerian throne, he demanded that Hugo's portrait be removed from the throne room and had a habit of leaving Hugo out of the family genealogy. So, perhaps this disdain for Rivia came actually from Foltest.
Good.
That was just something I noticed as I was reading through this. So, anyway, yeah. So the bar scene that we just kind of referenced, right? These guys give him a hard time because he's from Rivia, and he just up and kills them.
Yeah,
which seemed to be a little extreme.
Yeah, didn't one of them? I thought one of them kind of approached him and knocked a drink out of his hand or something, and the next thing I know, he's backing away. He's got his sword out, and there's dead bodies on the floor.
It's kind of like the first scene of The Mandalorian.
Nah, yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, maybe not. I don't know, but yeah. So, and it comes out later that really he just killed these people to shock the populace of the town, shock the king, to draw attention. Because as the Castellan is talking to him before throwing him in the dungeon, Geralt kind of reveals who he is. And it's really weird to see how the Castellan's tone just completely changes.
Yeah, that was kind of bizarre to me because it was just, the Castellan was kind of on his case and, he's going to be hanged for this or, things are going to happen. Then all of a sudden he's like, do you drink beer? Right. He's like, yeah, I drink beer.
Right. So apparently if you need beer, you just have to walk into a town and kill people with a sword. That's what I got out of this.
And probably be a witcher, too.
I mean, yeah, that probably doesn't hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't hurt.
But, yeah.
But throughout a lot of this, I kind of gathered that the important thing for the Witcher, and I suppose maybe this happens a little bit later, is like the items that he uses, like the swords and whatnot. Do you suppose he actually has two swords or one sword, or like this is one of the few series where I actually remember where the hero stores the sword on his back. Like I feel like that's like a distinguishing mark of this story so far, is that everything, all the pieces are there like other stories, but they're just measured or controlled differently. And I thought that was kind of a unique aspect of The Witcher so far.
I think it's like him and He-Man that do that, right? Because He-Man always had the sword on his back too. Yeah,
good point.
But to your point, and I'll bring this up, is he actually does carry two swords. One is for monster slaying, and one is for people slaying. So that's kind of handy, and it kind of makes a lot of sense if you think about it. There was something I picked out here. Let's see. Yeah, here it is. So the comment was that silver is effective against most monsters brought into existence through magic. So his sword being silver is important. Yeah,
it's important. Well, I kind of think of that like the silver bullets for werewolves, or like silver is, well, heck, I mean, you're in the coronavirus pandemonium, and the one thing I hear is if you have silver, clean with silver because it's antimicrobial, it has special properties. So like silver inherently is just different material than average steel.
Yeah. And you wouldn't want to dull your sword on people if it's made of,
something special.
Yeah. Anyway, so two swords, like you said. And his journey to the Castellan ultimately takes him to Foltest, the king, right? And this is where I got kind of some... lost my train of thought. Some differences between what Netflix was doing versus what the story told.
Oh, sure.
Because in the story, there's no question that Foltest and his sister had this baby. But in the next Netflix show, that's like unknown. It's a mystery, and like Geralt has to like dig and assume, and he finally gets to it like halfway through the episode. So that was...
But here it was pretty much laid out right away. Yeah. Like, oh yeah, this town has a problem, and this is what the problem is. Actually, that is one difference that I've heard, and one complaint from some of the Reddit commentators, is that the Netflix show sounds like you need a little bit of a background on the game or the novel before you can really dive into it in the early episodes. Versus the book, they kind of lay everything out originally. I thought they did a pretty good job of laying it out in the book.
Yeah, I think it's a lot easier to follow. And the thing that really kind of messed with me from the perspective of the Netflix show was they're bouncing around, and this is a spoiler if you haven't seen the Netflix show yet, but they kind of bounce around in different time periods, and it takes you 3 or 4 episodes to really figure that out. You're like, oh, this happened in the past, because they don't come out and tell you. And I think that's why there's a barrier to entry with the Netflix series. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, that was just something that struck me when I went back and watched it last night. I'm like, oh yeah, they're not going to just come out and say this, but they basically find out, and this is on page 18 of the book, but they're like basically the king's daughter is essentially they call her a striga. Let's see. Velerad, who's the Castellan, leapt from his chair. "The princess looks like a striga," he yelled. "Like the most striggish striga I have ever heard of. Her royal highness, the cursed royal bastard, is 4 cubits high, shaped like a barrel of beer, has a maw which stretches from ear to ear and is full of dagger-like teeth, has red eyes and a red mop of hair. Her paws, with claws like a wild cat's, hang down to the ground. I'm surprised we've yet to send her likeness to friendly courts. The princess, Plague Choker, is already 14. Time to think of giving her hand to a prince in marriage." So,
wow.
But it's kind of at this scene where the Castellan has taken Geralt before the king, where we also have, like, is it the magistrate, or what is Ostrit's title?
I can't remember, but yeah.
King Jerk?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see.
We'll have more on him later, I think.
Yeah, just a bit.
Yeah, what was his title?
I don't remember. For some reason, I have, like... Magnate. He's the magnate. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. That's right.
But it's kind of interesting because they get into, this is the king wants to cure her. He doesn't want her killed, even though she's been preying on his subjects for 7 years, right? And as I kind of thought about this, I'm like, okay, if I were in this position, I would probably want the same thing. Right?
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting, though, when the Witcher and Geralt and Foltest have their conversation kind of, before he is going to do the job, when he says, if an accident were to happen, I'll berate you in front of everybody, but I'll let you go on your way, if you were to take care of your So the king understands, he seems to understand kind of what's at stake here, that ideally he would like her to be saved if possible, but he could also live with the other consequence should that happen.
Well, and Geralt is very specific. He's like, look, I will try to reverse the spell, but if I have to kill her in self-defense, I will. I don't really want to die. So.
No, but he's also pretty open about, there is a way to break this curse, and kind of here's what we have to do. And I remember when Foltest says that he wants to be there with him, and he's like, hell no. Nope.
Yeah. And they find out that there's a survivor. I think it's...
Is that before...
It's like one of the first attacked people, one of the guards, I think.
There was a guard and then the miller, wasn't it?
The miller is the one I was thinking of, where the...
Because the miller's the one they go to visit, and he really doesn't have much to offer, other than he was completely messed up by it.
The guard who brought the miller in to see Geralt was actually the king in disguise. I thought that was kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And like
Is that...
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, is that before or after? Because I know that when Geralt and Foltest have their conversation, Foltest asks if this was because he had a baby with his sister, or was there some other reason she turned out this way? And that's where he talks about, no, this was the work of magic. Somebody cursed the baby when it was born, and but I can't remember if that was before or after, because I thought that was interesting too. But I thought that was before the Miller conversation. Maybe it's not.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't remember where that took place.
Anyway, we could talk about the Miller first.
Nothing spectacular about the Miller, but the fact that the king went there in disguise as a guard to basically ask the Witcher some more questions, get some more information, talk to him alone. Because the Magnate was like, and the Castellan were both like, look, don't call her a striga in front of the king. Call her the princess. And when Foltest confronts him and Geralt says princess, he's like, no, she's a striga. Call her what she is. So you've got like these, like this group is trying to keep the king happy, and the king's just like, look, I'm done BSing around. Let's just figure this out.
Yeah, and that's where Geralt says, I intend to do what is in my power, but if it goes badly, I will defend my life. Your Majesty, you must be prepared for such an eventuality. And then Foltest says, blah, 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 I won't punish anyone who kills her in self-defense, but I will not allow her to be killed without trying to save her.
Which is reasonable, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then I think that's when he goes on at some point to say, if you were to do this, if you were to kill her, I'll berate you publicly, but I'm not going to do anything about it. You probably won't get your money, but, you can go on your own way.
And the interesting thing there is there's a group of, I don't know who exactly, who are offering him money to just go and kill the striga and be done with it. They're like, look, the king
wasn't that when they talk about the other Witcher that had come in to try to do the job, that this group would come up with 1,000 oren or whatever their currency is, and he took one look at the striga and walked away from the money and left town.
Yeah.
And so that's when Geralt said, if it's not worth that, then don't bother coming at me with anything less than, was it 3,000 or whatever the king had offered.
Yeah. And that's another difference between the book and the Netflix episode as well, because that Witcher actually got disemboweled.
That was at the very beginning of the episode, wasn't it?
His heart and his liver were taken out. But the king basically spread the word that the Witcher had run away with the money, because if the populace of the kingdom knew that this thing killed a Witcher, they would be even more freaked out than they were. Also, the introduction of Triss Marigold in the Netflix episode was interesting, I thought. She was a sorceress. She was a sorceress in the king's court. She was the lady that came to him in the woods. But she figures very heavily into the games, at least. And I'm assuming she's in later books as well. But I think...
So I've never played the game, so I don't have any.
But I think they just wanted to kind of get her and Yennefer both into the Netflix series sooner as opposed to later. So.
You said Yennefer was written.
No, she was just introduced a lot. This was before she would have naturally been introduced in the story.
Oh,
I think I mistyped when I talked to you earlier about that. So. Anyway, So next time. We will cover Geralt's visit to the palace, and we will see how he fares against the striga.
Hopefully he does well, because there's a lot of other Witcher stories.
One would assume he makes it.
Yeah.
We think.
But how he feeling? Does he kill her? Does he save her? That's...
One of the cool things about the game is that minor decisions that you make in the game, in the third game, have this kind of cascading consequence all the way through the game. So that's kind of what this kind of reminds me of. It's well, if he doesn't kill her, if he does, how does that impact? And you can kind of do that with anybody, right? It's like, what do I do if I decide I'm just not going to go to work tomorrow? versus if I do? How does my life change? So
yeah. Well, I probably won't go into work
clearly
tomorrow,
not,
but
you know what I mean.
I'm actually between jobs right now. Yeah.
Okay, so next week, second half of the story, we will get in one corner Geralt, in the other Princess Striga. That's right.
Call her what she is.
Yeah.
Okay. Everybody, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for joining us. We look forward to seeing you next time. Please hit the subscribe and like buttons if you enjoyed what you just watched, and we'll see you in a week.